So let me ask you something before we get into this. When your company rolled out mental health benefits, the mental health days, the recharge days, the "we see you as a whole person" language in the onboarding packet, how did you feel reading it? I'll tell you how I felt. Relieved. Like, oh, these people actually thought about this. Like, whatever came next in that job, at least I knew the door was there if I needed it. And here's the thing, I'm not taking that feeling back. That relief was real. The benefit might have been real too, but there's something most of us never stop to ask when we walk through that door. Where does that information go? I'm not here to do the "corporations don't actually care about you" video. That conversation has been had. You've seen that conversation. This is not that. This is about 3 specific things that happen after you take the day. 3 things happening right now in 2026 in HR systems across the country that most employees have never heard of, and only 2 of them are completely legal. Trust me, you want to know what the third one is. The difference between a protected mental health leave and an unprotected one can be the difference between a benefit and a paper trail. And I didn't learn that from an HR manual. I learned it from Toby. So this was maybe 3 weeks ago. Toby and I are sitting in my car in the parking lot of this wing spot on Cascade. We'd grabbed food, hadn't found anywhere to go, so we're just sitting there with the bags in our laps. And Toby is telling me about the last few months at his old insurance job, the stretch before he finally left. I already knew the broad strokes. The company culture wasn't great. He'd been checked out for a while. But this particular night, he was getting into the details. He said, and I want you to hear how he said it, because this is Toby. He's not a complainer. He doesn't exaggerate. He said, "Reg, the thing that still gets me is I used the benefit exactly the way they said to. They told me it was there. I used it. I came back. And it still ended up in my review." I turned down the radio. "What do you mean it ended up in your review?" He goes, "There was a comment about consistency, about engagement. I didn't put it together at first because it wasn't a performance number. It was just language. But I knew. Because the only time anything had been off that quarter was the recharge days." He ate a wing, just quiet. "I didn't do anything wrong, Reg. I used it exactly the way they advertised." I didn't have anything to say to that, because I believed him, and because I didn't have an explanation for what had happened. So I did what I do when something doesn't add up. I went home and started looking. First thing I looked up, what actually happens when you take a company wellness day? Not what the benefits document says, what actually happens on the back end. And here's what I found. Every time you take an informal wellness day, a mental health day, a recharge day, a company-branded "we care about you" personal day, it gets entered into an HR system. Not as a sick day necessarily, not as vacation. It gets logged under whatever category your company built for it. And that log is an attendance data point. Now here's where it matters. That log is not protected leave. Not in the federal sense. The Family and Medical Leave Act, FMLA, the federal law that actually gives you job protection when you need medical leave, that protection attaches to formally designated leave. The kind with paperwork. The kind where you fill out a form, your doctor signs something, and there's a paper trail that says this leave is FMLA protected. An informal recharge day is not that. It's a perk. Your company invented it, your company offered it, and your company tracks it. And because it's a perk and not a protected entitlement, they are completely within the law to log it, categorize it, and keep the record. The confidentiality language you may have seen in your benefits enrollment that typically covers formally designated medical information, health records, doctor's notes. It does not, in most cases, extend to the attendance record that just got created when you took last Thursday off to decompress. That's the first thing. They log it. Not maliciously, not even intentionally in most cases. It's automatic. It's unremarkable. The system does it the same way it logs everything else. Most employees never think to ask what category their wellness day is being filed under, because why would they? The company told them it was there to help. I thought about what Toby said. I used it exactly the way they advertised. And I started to understand the specific nature of what he meant. He wasn't saying he was lied to. He was saying he walked through a door without checking what was on the other side. Okay, so they log it. That's one thing. You might be sitting there thinking, all right, fine, it's in a system somewhere. So what? HR keeps records. That's their job. And you'd be right. Records by themselves aren't the problem. The problem is what the records feed. I want you to stay with me for this next part, because this is where I went from mildly concerned to genuinely unsettled. I went looking at what HR systems are actually doing with attendance and wellness data in 2026. And y'all, I don't even know how to set this up in a way that makes it land correctly. I'm just going to tell you what I found. About 6 out of 10 companies now use AI tools for performance tracking. 60%. These aren't tools that observe you once a quarter. These are tools that pull from multiple data streams in real time. Attendance patterns, response times, calendar activity, meeting participation, and yes, wellness day usage. And they generate a score. They call it an engagement score. And that score lives on a dashboard. Not your dashboard, your manager's dashboard. You see a benefit. Your manager sees a number. And those two views are looking at the same data. I sat with that for a while. The wellness app your company uses to promote recharge days and mental health check-ins. In many cases, that same platform, or one connected to it, is feeding information into a system that generates a real-time read on how engaged you appear to be. There are HR products, openly marketed in 2026, with case studies and product pages that describe their value as well-being dashboards that identify at-risk teams before burnout occurs. Manager-facing. Real-time. Aggregating wellness, engagement, and performance data in a unified feed. The product category exists. The vendors are not hiding it. The employees are largely unaware of it. That's the second thing. They score it. And look, I want to be honest here. The scoring doesn't automatically mean harm. Plenty of companies use these tools and the information stays in a wellness context. But here's the thing about a score that your manager can see. It exists. It has a number attached to it. And numbers get used. Especially when there's a decision to make. Which brings us to Toby's review. Which brings us to the third thing. Now look, I already know what some of you are thinking right now. You're thinking, my company has policies about this. HR told me my wellness data is confidential. It says so in the benefits document. My HR rep specifically said it won't be used against me. And I hear that. I actually think that's a fair thing to believe. Because in a lot of cases, someone at your company genuinely means it when they say it. The formal protections exist. FMLA designated leave, the kind with the paperwork, the formal designation, the doctor's certification. That leave is job protected by federal law. Retaliation against formally designated FMLA leave is illegal. The Department of Labor closed nearly 350 enforcement actions in a single year over exactly that. The law has teeth. But here is the distinction that I need you to sit with. The thing your HR rep described and the thing I've been talking about are not the same thing. Formal FMLA leave has a shield. Your recharge day has a perk. The confidentiality promise in your benefits document, read it again carefully sometime. In most cases, that language protects formally designated medical information. Your diagnosis, your doctor's notes, what your condition actually is. It does not, in most interpretations, extend to the attendance record your company created when you used a discretionary benefit they invented. The DOL has said plainly that employers may factor attendance into performance evaluations, including wellness day attendance, as long as the same standard applies to all leave types. The law permits it. The system is built for it. Your HR rep is not lying to you. They're describing the formal system. I'm describing the informal one. And most of the time, when you take a recharge day, you're in the informal one. So, performance review season arrives, or succession planning, or someone needs to restructure a team, and a few names are getting circled for closer consideration. That engagement score, the one on your manager's dashboard, is an input. The attendance record, the one that logged every recharge day going back 18 months, is an input. The output is a conversation. And the conversation sounds like, "We've noticed some inconsistency. We want to make sure you're still engaged. We want to see more of a commitment to going above and beyond." Not, "We saw you took 4 recharge days." Just consistency, engagement, going above and beyond. That was the language in Toby's review. He knew where it came from. By the time he knew, he was already on his way out. That's the third thing. They surface it. And I want to be clear, I'm not telling you the system is universally crooked, or that every company is running deliberate surveillance, or that every manager who ever wrote engagement in a review was pulling from a wellness dashboard. That's not what the evidence says. What the evidence says is that the architecture exists, the tools are being used, and the gap between what the benefit offers and what the system tracks is real. And most employees are living inside it without knowing. You still with me? Because here's where we get to the part your company definitely didn't explain during onboarding. A few nights after that parking lot conversation, I called Toby back. I wanted to tell him what I'd found. And at some point, I asked him, if he'd known then what he knows now, what would he have done differently? He didn't hesitate. I would have gone formal about it. I would have done the paperwork. Not because I was hiding anything, just because formal means it's on record the right way. Informal means it's on record their way. That's it. That's the whole move. The difference between a mental health day and FMLA leave isn't always obvious from the outside. They can feel identical. You feel burnt out, you need time, you take the day. But they are legally different things. FMLA leave requires a qualifying condition, anxiety, depression, PTSD, bipolar disorder, OCD, all qualify under federal law when they meet the clinical threshold. It requires paperwork. It requires your employer to formally designate the leave. And once it's formally designated, the protections attach. Retaliation becomes illegal. The leave cannot be factored into your performance evaluation the same way a discretionary absence can. Now, FMLA is not for everyone. You have to have worked at your company for at least 12 months. Your company has to have at least 50 employees. Not every condition qualifies without documentation. And going formal does mean the condition goes on the record in a different way, which some people are not ready for. And that's a real consideration. But here's what Toby was pointing at. Most people have never had this conversation. They took the recharge day because the company said it was there. They never asked whether there was a version of that same leave with a legal shield attached. And by the time they found out the difference, it was already in the review. The benefit is real. The architecture beneath it is also real. And knowing which door you're walking through, that's the one thing they are definitely not going to tell you at onboarding. I drove home from that wing spot slow that first night. Sat in my car for a while before I went upstairs, just thinking. I thought about every onboarding packet I'd ever read. Every time I saw "We care about your well-being" and felt that little exhale. Okay, at least there's that. That feeling was real. The relief was real. I don't want to take it from anybody. I just kept coming back to one thing. When something feels like care, you stop asking who built it and why. I never once, not one time, read a mental health benefit offering and asked what happened to the data afterward. It didn't occur to me to ask. The door was open and the light inside was warm, and I walked through. I think most of us do. I thought about Toby saying I used it exactly the way they advertised it. And I thought, that's not carelessness, that's trust. And trust is not the same thing as protection. I thought about every time I saw "We care about your well-being" in a benefits document and felt grateful. I never once asked what happened to the proof that I believed them. If this hit different, drop a comment and tell me. Have you ever taken a company wellness day and later noticed language in your review that made you wonder? Or if you've actually gone through the FMLA process for a mental health condition, tell me what that experience was like. I read every single one of these. And if somebody in your life is at a job right now where they're using company wellness benefits and they don't know this distinction exists, send this to them today. Because the gap between protected and unprotected is not something HR is going to cover in onboarding. That's exactly why we're here. I'm Reggie. You'll stay sharp out there.